Project Scope Management. Project Scope Management involves processes of defining project objective and work required to be done in the project. It involves making sure that all that work and only that work is done. In order to avoid scope change during execution of the project, it is necessary to define the project scope very clearly and getting it formally approved from the project owner. Major step in project scope management is requirement gathering. This takes substantial amount of time. Project manager must take care that requirements are collected from all the stakeholders, that is project owner, project team member, end user, and other departments directly or indirectly affecting the project. Requirement gathering is done against business case. It is then ranked, prioritized, and boundaries are set. Only that requirements necessary to complete the project scope are considered in the project. Any other requirement created during execution then has to be included after proper change control procedure. It is necessary to continuously monitor project requirements as project progresses. Project Scope Management. Project Scope Management includes the processes required to ensure that the project includes all the work required and only the work required to complete the project successfully. It includes following processes: plan scope management, collect requirement, define scope, create WBS, validate scope, and control scope. Plan scope management. Plan scope management. The process of creating a scope management plan that documents how the project scope will be defined, validated, and controlled. It contains two plans, namely Scope Management Plan and Requirements Management Plan. Scope Management Plan. It includes following information: how scope will be planned, how scope will be executed, how scope will be controlled, what tools and techniques to be used in scope management, how to create WBS, and how scope will be managed and controlled. Requirement Management Plan. It includes following information: how requirements for the project will be collected, how requirements will be analyzed, how requirements will be prioritized, how requirements will be managed and tracked, how requirement traceability metrics will be created. Experts, subject matter experts, senior project team members are involved in this process. Expert judgment, project charter, lesson learned documents from previous similar project are used in this process. Available templates can be used as such or tailored for preparing these planning documents. Collect requirements. Collect requirements. In this, stakeholder states what are their needs from a project or product. These requirements are then collected as per Requirement Management Plan. The high-level project and product description should have already been defined in the project charter during initiation. In this process, detailed requirements are gathered from all stakeholders. Any missed requirement may result in significant change or conflict in the project. As requirements are needed to be collected from all the stakeholders, use of the stakeholder register is done to identify them. As this is very critical step for project success, previous lesson learned from similar project and data gathering techniques are studied first. Data gathering techniques. Reviewing historical records. Historical records, project documents, lesson learned from similar projects, procurement documents, risk register are reviewed. Interviews. Project team or manager interview stakeholders. Focus groups. Subject matter expert give opinion on specific requirements or an aspect of the project. Facilitation workshop. Groups of nominated stakeholders, cross-functional group from different departments comes together and under the guidance of facilitated discussion on the following aspects of the project. Business problems, defining and analyzing. Business case, creating and analyzing the business cases. Process models, creating and analyzing the process models. Business data models, creating and analyzing the business data models. Well-facilitated workshops on all of the above will result in agreed upon requirements. It involves following steps: planning, identifying participants for the requirement gathering, deciding technique that will be used for the same, deciding agenda of workshop and probable deliverables of the workshop, preparing, discussion of participant regarding the workshop, performing. Facilitation team facilitates the team in workshop. It involves collection of requirements, user stories, process maps, use case models. Polishing, finalizing requirement documents and requirement traceability metrics, revisiting project charter, goals and objectives, and original estimates. Publishing, wrap up of the meeting with project team, decision go or no go based upon generated data. Collect requirements. Following gives an example of facilitated workshop in an IT software development project. Following are some of the methods for collecting requirements using facilitated workshop in an IT software development project. Joint application development, JAD, joint application requirement, JAR, joint requirement planning, JRP. Facilitated workshop versus focus group. In focus group, discussion is focused around a topic, whereas in facilitated workshop, involvement of cross-functional members helps to see the problem from all perspectives. In focus group, facilitator already knows what he wanted to ask from each participant and develop a discussion guide accordingly. In facilitated workshop, objective of workshop is to develop a consensus for the decision within all members based on information for the goal of the workshop. In focus group, facilitator develops discussion guide based on experience of each participant with the product. In facilitated workshop, person who has knowledge helps decision makers to make decision based on firm information. Following is the group creativity techniques. First is brainstorming. Brainstorming. Brainstorming is a process for generating new ideas. Brainstorming uses a set of specific rules and techniques which encourages and sparks of new ideas which would never have happened under normal circumstances. Brainstorming is the name given to a situation when a group of people meet to generate new ideas around a specific area of interest. Using rules which remove inhibitions, people are able to think more freely and move into new areas of thought and so create numerous new ideas and solutions. The participants shout out ideas as they occur to them and then build on the ideas raised by others. All the ideas are noted down and are not criticized. Only when the brainstorming session is over are the ideas evaluated. In the similar way, brainstorming is carried out to collect product and project requirements. Rules for brainstorming. Identify or define objective of brainstorming. Try to generate individual views, solutions or requirements. Once all views, solutions or requirements are known, work as group to carry out discussion on them. Most of the time, brainstorming and normal group techniques are carried out together in one session. As with brainstorming, only requirements are collected which are further needed to be prioritized. Normal group technique. Requirements are generated by brainstorming session. All the requirements are voted and ranked for prioritization. Idea or mind mapping. Mind mapping is a visual form of note-taking that offers an overview of a topic and its complex information, allowing team to comprehend, create new ideas and build connections. Through the use of colors, images and words, mind mapping encourages team to begin with a central idea and expand outward to more in-depth subtopics. In brainstorming, lots of requirements are gathered. With mind mapping, these requirements are then mapped into a single graph which shows interdependencies, differences between the requirements that help project team to gather new ideas. Idea mind mapping. Following is the example of mind mapping. Following mind map shows weekly activities performed. Affinity diagram. In this, large number of requirements are classified, categorized, grouped for review and analysis. Multi-criteria decision making. In this technique, each requirement is evaluated using systematic analytical approach. Criteria for judgment are set and each requirement is evaluated against that criteria. Criteria can be cost, risk, quality, etc. Collect requirements. Group Collect requirements. Group decision making technique. Decision making. It can be unanimity, where everyone agrees to single course of action. Majority, where more than 50% agrees on same course of action which is accepted. Plurality, where decision is made on agreement of largest block in a group. And dictatorship, one individual makes decision for the group. Collect requirements, questionnaires and survey. In this method, specially designed questionnaires or survey is distributed to the large number of audience. From the gathered information, requirements can be collected. Observation. In this method, individual from one area of the organization has the opportunity to work alongside and gain experience of the role of another individual and gain an insight into that particular work area. Prototype. Prototype is a first or preliminary version of a device or vehicle from which other forms are developed. It is a good tool to identify and collect requirements. Collect requirements case study, building construction project. Collect requirements. From the video following are the few requirements that can be gathered broadly as land, recognize different structural steel shapes, various types of bricks, plastics, glass insulation, plywood, cement, ceramic tiles, concrete, concrete bricks, concrete masonry unit, and cut stones. Collect requirements. It takes many different kinds of materials to construct a building project. Most of these materials are carefully detailed in the project working drawings. Information about materials may also be included in the drawing notes and project specifications. Required permissions and clearances are also part of the project requirements. As you can see in this example, there are various requirements belonging to different categories. It is not possible for a single person to identify them. Hence, requirements for each category can be identified by experts and then discussed collectively in the facilitated workshop with the entire project team. The output. Requirements documentation describes how individual requirements meet the business need for the project. Business requirements, stakeholders requirements, solution requirements, project requirements, assumption, dependency, and constraints. Requirements traceability matrix. The requirements traceability matrix is a grid that links product requirements from their origin to the deliverables that satisfy them. Following is an example of required traceability matrix. Define scope. In this process, project team decides which deliverables will be part of project and which will not. That is, deciding inclusion and exclusion in the project. Scope must be clearly defined and formally approved before work is started. Scope can be subdivided into product scope. These are the requirements that relate to the product of the project. And project scope, it is the work the project will do to deliver the product of the project. Define scope. Product analysis. Analyzing product features against various functional and business aspects, comparing it with project charter and business need. Every product is designed in a particular way. Product analysis enables us to understand the important materials, processing, economic, and aesthetic decisions which are required before any product can be manufactured. An understanding of these decisions can help us in designing and making for ourselves. Product analysis. There are two main types of products: those that only have one component, for example a spatula, and those that have lots of components, for example a bike. Products with lots of components are called systems. For example, bike, it has frame, wheels, pedals, forks, etc. In product analysis, we start by considering the whole system. But to understand why various materials and processes are used, we usually need to pull it apart and think about each component as well. We can now analyze the function in more detail and draft a design specification. Alternate generation technique. This technique is used to identify best possible way to perform any action or activity out of many other actions. Defining scope. Check out following videos which describes business need, product scope, and project scope. The videos will have business need and business case. Business need will have reason for project. and business case consists of project deliverable and financial basis.
The concept of the nano happened while watching families riding on two-wheelers, usually the father riding the bike, a little kid sitting on the gas tank or standing on a scooter platform in front of him, his wife sitting side saddle, and maybe a child in between him and his wife. And if you then translate this image to that of a rainy night, you can see that that whole family is in considerable danger of sliding or being run over by people in the back. So I kept seeing this and I kept thinking this is unacceptable. So how can you make that two-wheeler safer? And it came to a head when once in Bangalore, two-wheelers slid in front of my car. And the driver did stop, but the family was all over the road. So I just felt we needed to do something. So I spent about 8-9 months trying to see, well, how could we make a two-wheeler safer? If it fell, how would we safeguard the riders on it? And should there be 4 or 5, or should you hold it to 1 and 2 as it should be? And in the process, I really came to the conclusion that we're trying to do something that couldn't be done adequately. And so why don't we try to see whether we can get a car down in cost to somewhere in the vicinity between the cheapest car and the more expensive motorbike to give a family of 4 or 5 an affordable transport through all kinds of weather. Not a motor scooter in a jacket, but a car. Quite early in the game, somebody interviewed me in Geneva and asked, how much will the car cost? And I said about 100,000 rupees, and then got plastered as a price. Instead of refuting it, I went on to making that an internal target. And it was the greatest thing that happened to us because it had set out a goal that was said to be undoable. And then we went about it and we found that it was far from being impossible. It was certainly within the realm of possibility. We had companies like Bosch, etc., who initially walked away saying there's nothing they could do to produce injection systems for such a vehicle, who came back and developed a low-cost injection system for this, which are now being marketed in.
Product scope. These are the requirements that relate to the product of the project.
So one of the most extraordinary experiences of my motoring life, I think. Basic essence of the Nano's makeup is its style, and its overall design is one of basic simplicity with a very smiley front face, a wide track and a tall stance, but the tall stance is mirrored by the design which makes it look very homogeneous in a sense. Side, if you look at the car in profile, and this is exactly what a very short 3-meter long car, and it packs in ample room to have seat 5 adults in comfort with excellent entry and exit propositions, because you don't need to really sink into the seats or whatnot. There is a fantastic character line on the waistline, and the swage line again with a sweeping thing which extends from midway to the front door. And what do we have here? It's not just ornamental, but it also serves a purpose. It's functional because it tries to channel air to cool the engine, which is placed at the rear.
The driving characteristics of this car are amazing. It has no power steering, but it doesn't need it. The engine's down there underneath the back seat.
Retails here in India for 1 lakh or just above. That's about £1,300. Now, as you can see, it's a bubble-shaped car. It's a car that is jelly bean, but it's done so for aerodynamics. It's one of the cleanest and greenest cars on Indian roads. In fact, on any roads, there are only about 24 British cars that'll do any better. Although the car's only got a 624cc engine, it's quite nippy. Gear changing is smooth, and you kind of have a bit of acceleration, but it soon runs out of puff. Now, you don't get much for £1,300 in India, but it does have a steering wheel, the essential 4 seats. Only mine can be moved back, of course, and plenty of room at the back. Now, I'm 5'10", and you can easily fit in here. The real difference between any other car that you might see on the roads is the dashboard. Little more than a speedometer and a little dial that tells you how much petrol you got left. Bar the window wiper, of which there's only one of them, and a few little knobs here and there, that's it.
Frame, and the subframe is hooked onto the body, and this makes it very easy even for maintenance, because when I say maintenance, there is no tailgate. It doesn't open, it's fixed. Helps across the structural integrity of the car as well.
Nobody else could do this. The Germans would put in too much stuff and build the value, and suddenly it would cost as much as a Mini. The Americans would start by pricing it just under the opposition, which would immediately disenfranchise all those people on the motorcycle.
What's really great about this car, it's very nippy. It's got the turning circle of a black cab in London, and it's the size of a Fiat Panda. So it really is a car built for urban driving in a British context. And I would buy one. At this price, you'd be crazy not to. See ya.
Project Scope. It is the work the project will do to deliver the product of the project. Technology development process. It involves functional specification and target setting, prototype design, initial performance assessment, prototype development, and design for validation. The following slide shows car manufacturing process. Product launch. It involves sales planning, logistics planning, sales and marketing, marketing planning, other related planning for product launch, and supply chain management. Define scope. The output is project scope statement. It includes product scope. These are the requirements that relate to the product of the project. Project scope. It is the work the project will do to deliver the product of the project. Deliverables of project and product. Acceptance criteria, assumption and constraints. Create WBS. Create work breakdown structure. Decomposition involves dividing each project deliverable into smaller and smaller pieces until there is enough detail to support scheduling, estimating, and control. Decomposition normally involves the following steps. Decomposition mainly done with 100% rule. The 100% rule states that the WBS includes 100% of the work defined by the project scope and captures all deliverables, internal, external, interim, in terms of the work to be completed, including project management. The sum of the work at the child level must equal 100% of the work represented by the parent, and the WBS should not include any work that falls outside the actual scope of the work. Following shows the example of WBS. Please note that the control account controls manage cost, schedule, project scope at higher level than work package. Work package is the smallest unit here. The example shows deliverable, which is segregated into two control accounts A and B. Again, control account A is segregated as work package A and work package B, and control account B is segregated as work package A and work package B. Please note, work package is the smallest unit and it cannot be segregated further. The following example shows work breakdown structure of a pharmaceutical drugs. Pharmaceutical drugs is segregated into own manufacturing and in licensing. Again, further, own manufacturing is segregated into proprietary and generic, and in licensing is segregated in within EU and outside EU. The output of the WBS is project scope baseline. It contains project scope statement, WBS, WBS dictionary. It is output of create WBS process contains all schedule milestone, activity description, cost center, acceptance criteria, interdependencies of each activity, resource required, technical references, etc. Validate scope. Validate scope is the process of formalizing acceptance of the completed project deliverables. Once deliverables are available, they are verified by quality control process. These verified deliverables are then sent to the sponsor for the formal acceptance of the deliverables. Validate scope. Without any change, control flow can simply look as follows. This will have deliverables, direct and manage project work, verified deliverables, for example QC check, accepted deliverables by the customer. The last process, control and monitor scope. Control scope. This process involves measuring and accessing project work done against scope baseline and managing changes in the scope baseline. Variance analysis. Variance is measurable change from known standard or baseline. In case there is a deviation from baseline, cause is identified and corrective action or appropriate action is taken as a part of integrated change control.